Have you ever noticed that one woman who seems to exist in a completely different reality from everyone else? You know the type. She moves through life with an almost mysterious confidence, but not the kind that screams for attention. No, this is different. She commands respect without ever asking for it, creates success without following the usual playbook, and seems totally unbothered by the social pressures that consume everyone else. Maybe you've seen her at work, that colleague who produces brilliant results, but somehow never gets caught up in office drama. Or perhaps you've met her at a social gathering, the one person who seems perfectly content standing alone, observing everything with those analytical eyes that seem to see right through everyone's facades. Well, my friends, you've probably encountered what people call a Sigma female, but trust me, there's so much more to this personality type than meets the eye, so much more that most people never get to see, or even try to understand. Hey everyone, welcome back to another eye-opening video. I'm genuinely excited about today's topic because we're about to dive deep into some seriously uncomfortable territory. We're going to uncover the dark, rarely discussed truths about Sigma females that most people are either too afraid to talk about or simply don't understand. And let me tell you something, by the end of this video, you're going to see Sigma females in a completely different light. Whether you are one yourself, know one, or are just curious about this fascinating personality type, you're about to understand why being a Sigma female isn't the glamorous, empowering story that social media might have you believe. 1. The lonely reality behind their independence. Let's kick things off with something that hits right at the core: the real price of extreme independence. You know how everyone loves to romanticize the whole lone wolf persona? How they paint this beautiful picture of a woman who doesn't need anyone, who's completely self-sufficient, and somehow thriving in her solitude. Well, here's the dark truth that nobody talks about: that independence often comes from a place of deep-seated trust issues and emotional scars that run far deeper than anyone realizes. Think about it for a moment. While everyone's out there celebrating their ability to do it all alone, nobody mentions the countless nights spent staring at the ceiling, questioning whether they're pushing people away too much. That famous self-reliance? It's often a fortress built brick by brick from the rubble of past disappointments, betrayals, and heartbreaks. Let me paint you a more detailed picture. Imagine spending years learning to handle everything yourself, not because you want to, but because you've learned the hard way that depending on others often leads to disappointment. Every time you've opened up, every time you've shown vulnerability, it's backfired. So what do? You adapt. You evolve. You become so self-sufficient that the mere thought of asking for help feels like admitting defeat. But here's the kicker that really twists the knife: this independence isn't always a choice. Sometimes it's a survival mechanism that's spiraled way out of control. These women have become so proficient at being alone that building meaningful connections feels like trying to learn a foreign language in your 30s. The muscles needed for vulnerability and interdependence have atrophied from lack of use. And the real tragedy? The more capable they become, the harder it gets to bridge that gap. People look at their independence with admiration, never realizing it's often a prison built by their own hands. 2. The exhausting mental battlefield. You want to know what's really messed up? The constant, never-ending mental chess game that plays out in a Sigma female's mind. While the world sees this cool, collected person who seemingly has it all figured out, inside their head is absolute chaos, but not the disorganized kind. No, this is more like a supercomputer running thousands of scenarios simultaneously. Let me break down what happens in their mind during even the simplest social interaction. First, there's the immediate analysis. What's this person's real motivation? What are they not saying? What do they want from me? Then comes the strategic planning. How do I respond in a way that maintains boundaries while not appearing cold? What are the potential consequences of each possible response? How will this interaction affect future dynamics? Every single social interaction gets dissected from at least 50 different angles. Every decision, no matter how small, comes with an exhausting spiral of what-ifs that would make most people's heads spin. They're constantly strategizing, planning, and preparing for scenarios that might never happen because, in their experience, being unprepared is worse than being exhausted. Here's a typical example: a coworker asks them to grab coffee. Simple, right? Wrong. In the Sigma female's mind, this triggers an avalanche of analysis. Is this just social? Or is there a hidden agenda? Will this create an expectation for regular coffee dates? How will declining affect workplace dynamics? If I accept, what precedent am I setting? What's the most efficient way to handle this without creating future complications? And the worst part, they can't just turn it off. This hyper-awareness, this constant processing, it's as natural as breathing to them now. But it comes at a massive cost. The mental energy required to maintain this level of analysis is staggering. Yet they've gotten so good at hiding it that most people never see the mental gymnastics happening behind those calculating eyes. 3. The burden of being misunderstood. Here's something that'll make you think twice: the crushing weight of being constantly misunderstood. Sigma females often find themselves branded with labels like cold, manipulative, or even sociopathic. And why? Because people instinctively fear what they don't understand. And let me tell you, most people have absolutely no idea how to categorize someone who operates outside their familiar social frameworks. Let's dig deeper into this misunderstanding. Picture this: a Sigma female in a typical workplace. She delivers exceptional results, but doesn't participate in office gossip. She's direct in meetings, but doesn't engage in the usual social niceties. What happens? The whispers start. She thinks she's too good for us. Why is she so antisocial? She must be manipulating situations to her advantage. Does she even have feelings? These women often find themselves being called fake for being selective with their emotions, or heartless for prioritizing logic over feelings. But here's what nobody seems to grasp: they feel things just as deeply as anyone else, sometimes even more intensely. The difference? They've learned to process emotions differently, often out of necessity. Think about it like this: imagine having a radio that picks up frequencies nobody else can hear. You're not just hearing the music, you're hearing all the static, the overlapping signals, the interference. That's how Sigma females experience emotions in social interactions. They're not cold, they're processing more information than most people realize exists. This constant misunderstanding creates a vicious cycle that's particularly cruel. They operate differently from social norms. People misunderstand and label them negatively. They withdraw further to protect themselves. The withdrawal reinforces the negative labels. The cycle deepens and repeats. And the real tragedy: many Sigma females eventually stop trying to explain themselves. Why bother when every attempt at explanation just seems to add another layer of misunderstanding? 4. The self-doubt they never show. Now, this one might genuinely surprise you. Despite their seemingly unshakable, confident exterior, Sigma females often battle with intense periods of self-doubt that would shock most people who know them. Yeah, you heard that right. These supposedly ultra-confident women question themselves constantly, but in ways most people never imagine. Let's pull back the curtain on what really happens in those quiet moments when no one's watching. 3 a.m. thoughts of a Sigma female. Am I really forging my own path? Or am I just afraid of connecting? Is my independence genuine? Or is it just well-disguised fear? Have I created this personality as a shield? What if everyone else is right, and I'm the one who's wrong? Am I missing out on fundamental human experiences? The pressure of walking a different path is real and relentless. When you're constantly going against the grain, there are moments, usually in the dead of night, when you wonder if you're just plain wrong about everything. These women find themselves questioning not just their choices, but their entire way of being. And here's what makes it even harder: they can't show these doubts to anyone. Why? Because they built their entire identity around being the strong, independent one who has it all figured out. Showing vulnerability feels like betraying their own character arc. These moments of vulnerability are never shown to the world. Instead, they get processed in private, usually during those long nights when the rest of the world is asleep. It's the price of being different. You never quite know if you're being authentic, or if you've just created another box to fit into, albeit a more unique one. The real kicker? This self-doubt often fuels their drive for perfectionism, creating a cycle that's both productive and potentially destructive. They push themselves harder, achieve more, but at what cost? 5. The career curse. Let's talk about something that hits close to home for many Sigma females: their relationship with work. While they often excel in their careers, there's a dark side to their professional success that nobody talks about. Their natural tendency to work alone, combined with their intense focus and strategic thinking, makes them excellent at what they do. But this same excellence often isolates them from their colleagues. They become the go-to person for tough projects but are rarely included in office social circles. And here's the real kicker: their refusal to play office politics or engage in social climbing often means they hit invisible ceilings in their careers. They might be the best at what they do, but in a world where networking and social connections matter, their lone wolf tendency can become their professional Achilles heel. 6. The dating dilemma. Oh boy, this one's a doozy. Dating as a Sigma female? It's like trying to fit a square peg in a round hole while blindfolded. Their approach to relationships often leaves potential partners confused and sometimes intimidated. They don't play games, they hate small talk, and they're not afraid to spend Friday nights alone. This directness and self-sufficiency can be incredibly attractive, but it also scares the living daylights out of many potential partners. The real dark truth. Many Sigma females find themselves in a paradox. They want deep, meaningful connections, but their nature makes it incredibly difficult to find someone who can handle their intensity and independence. They often end up in relationships where they feel like they have to dim their light to make others comfortable. 7. The social media struggle. In today's hyper-connected world, Sigma females face a unique challenge that nobody talks about: their complicated relationship with social media. While everyone's busy building their personal brand and sharing every moment of their lives, Sigma females often feel like aliens in the digital space. They see through the fakeness of social media performance, but they also recognize its necessity in today's world. This creates an internal conflict. How do you maintain authenticity while playing a game you fundamentally disagree with? Many end up either completely avoiding social media, which can hurt their professional opportunities, or creating a carefully curated presence that feels like wearing a mask. It's a modern dilemma that adds another layer of complexity to their already complicated lives. 8. The friends they leave behind. Here's a truth that's hard to swallow: Sigma females often outgrow friendships at an alarming rate. Their constant evolution and refusal to settle means they frequently find themselves drifting away from long-term friends. This isn't about being superior or looking down on others. It's about their constant need for growth and change conflicting with the natural human desire for stable, long-term relationships. They often find themselves in a cycle of meeting people, connecting deeply for a period, and then moving on when they feel the relationship no longer serves their growth. The pain of letting go of these friendships is real, but the pain of staying in stagnant relationships is even greater for them. It's a lonely path of constant evolution that few understand. 9. The perfectionism problem. Let's talk about the dark side of their drive for excellence. Sigma females often struggle with an intense form of perfectionism that goes beyond just wanting things done right. It's an all-consuming need to master everything they touch. This perfectionism isn't about impressing others, it's about meeting their own impossibly high standards. They often find themselves trapped in cycles of learning, practicing, and perfecting skills that others might consider unnecessary, just because they can't stand the idea of being mediocre at anything. The real cost? Burnout, anxiety, and the inability to ever feel truly satisfied with their achievements. It's like running a race with no finish line in sight. 10. The weight of wisdom. The final dark truth about Sigma females might be the heaviest of all: the burden of seeing too much. Their analytical nature and independence give them a unique perspective on life, but this clarity comes at a cost. They often see through social constructs, fake relationships, and societal expectations in ways that make it impossible to unsee. This awareness can make everyday interactions feel hollow and superficial. They notice the subtle manipulations, the social games, and the unspoken hierarchies that most people navigate unconsciously. This heightened awareness can lead to a kind of existential loneliness. When you see the matrix, so to speak, it becomes harder to just enjoy life's simple pleasures without overthinking them. Conclusion. So there you have it, the 10 dark truths about Sigma females that nobody likes to discuss. These aren't just character traits or quirks, they're the real, sometimes painful realities of walking this particular path in life. But here's the thing: understanding these darker aspects doesn't make Sigma females any less remarkable. If anything, knowing these struggles makes their strength even more impressive. They continue to forge their own path, despite the challenges, the loneliness, and the misunderstandings. Remember, every personality type comes with its own set of challenges. The key isn't to avoid these dark truths, but to understand them, work with them, and maybe even find ways to turn them into strengths. If you're a Sigma female watching this, know that you're not alone in these struggles. And if you know one, maybe this video has helped you understand them a little better. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you experienced any of these dark truths yourself? Let's start a conversation. Until next time, keep questioning everything and stay true to yourself, no matter how dark the path might seem.